Have you ever been locked in a bitter, just incredibly frustrating argument where you are 100% certain that you were doing the right thing?
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. I mean, you can feel it in your bones. You have the absolute moral high ground. You are protecting what fiercely needs to be protected. And you are completely baffled by the sheer stubbornness of the person sitting across from you.
It's maddening.
It really is. And then right in the middle of this massive fight, you have this sudden, jarring realization. The other person is staring back at you, equally convinced that they are on the side of the angels.
It's a universally maddening human experience. You're looking at them utterly bewildered, thinking like, how can you possibly not see that I am trying to fix this, that I'm trying to help?
Yeah, exactly.
And the profound irony is that they're running the exact same internal monologue about you.
You're both wearing the white hat in your own mental movie.
Yes, perfectly said.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. Over the next 15 minutes or so, we are on a very specific mission. We're going to completely reframe how you view the conflicts in your life.
A massive
A
reframe.
huge one.
Yeah.
Because we are taking a massive step away from that classic cinematic idea of good versus evil today. Because let's face it, most of our daily arguments aren't about defeating some comic book villain.
Right. Life is rarely that simple.
Thank goodness. Instead, we're looking at something much more common, much more relatable, and honestly a lot messier. We're looking at what happens when two sets of incredibly good intentions violently collide.
And to navigate this, we are drawing on a profoundly insightful piece of writing by brother Dr. Ishmael Teta. He's the founder of Aetherian Mission.
Yeah.
The piece is titled The Battle of Angels. And it offers this psychological and philosophical framework that, once you grasp it, makes it nearly impossible to look at your disagreements the same way again.
It honestly completely shifted my perspective. Because, if we are always fighting the forces of darkness, if our day-to-day conflicts aren't simply good versus evil, then what exactly are we fighting about so aggressively? Like, why does it feel so visceral?
That question brings us straight to the beating heart of Dr. Teta's core thesis. He argues that what we are usually experiencing is what he calls the battle of angels.
The battle of angels.
Yeah. This phenomenon occurs when one person's deep, fundamental understanding of goodness comes into direct, unyielding conflict with another person's equally deep understanding of goodness.
So it's literally two angels going to war.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes a crucial reality that our brains deliberately obscure from us in the heat of the moment, which is that in most everyday conflicts, both parties have incredibly sincere intentions.
Even when they're yelling at each other.
Even then, both genuinely care about the outcome. Both are actively trying to, protect, support, correct, or improve a situation.
Wow.
But because they are viewing the exact same matter from fundamentally different perspectives, their respective versions of goodness begin to grind against each other.
Like gears that don't fit.
Yes, they start working in opposition. And that friction is exactly what we experience as interpersonal conflict.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because abstractly, that makes perfect sense. But in practice, when you're in the thick of it, it feels crazy that two people trying to do good can end up at each other's throats.
It does feel crazy.
So let's use an analogy to ground this. Think about it like this. Imagine two people who are desperately trying to save a sinking rowboat in the middle of a lake.
Okay, a sinking boat.
Right. Person A sees the water rising, panics, grabs a bucket, and starts frantically bailing water out over the side. Their entire focus is on immediate survival.
Makes sense.
But then you have person B. Person B completely ignores the water pooling around their ankles, grabs some tools, drops to their knees, and starts trying to patch the hole in the hull.
Ah, right. They are completely focused on a long-term structural fix.
Exactly. Now, if we pause the scenario right there, both are taking essential actions. Both are undeniably trying to achieve the good of saving the boat.
But unpause the scenario and what actually happens.
Total chaos. Person A keeps tripping over person B's legs while trying to heave water out.
Yeah.
Person B is getting soaked and losing their grip on the tools because person A is splashing water everywhere. The mechanics of their actions are entirely incompatible in that tiny little space.
Right. They are literally getting in each other's way.
And before you know it, they drop the bucket, they drop the tools, and they are just screaming at each other as a boat goes down. And here is the psychological kicker. Person A doesn't just think person B is using the wrong tool.
No, of course not.
In that moment of stress, Person A's brain interprets person B's inaction on the water level as a literal threat to their life. They're thinking, you are ignoring the immediate danger. You are going to kill us.
Meanwhile, person B is looking at the bailing and thinking, you are wasting time on a temporary solution while the boat sinks. You're going to kill us.
Exactly. They start fighting, completely forgetting the shared goal because the threat response is just totally taken over.
That visual perfectly captures the psychological mechanism at play in Dr. Tedda's concept. I mean, they have completely lost sight of the shared mission because they are consumed by the friction of their methods.
Yeah.
When our survival instincts, or really even just our ego protection instincts kick in, we elevate our specific method to a moral absolute.
Our way becomes the only righteous way.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this exact dynamic is playing out continuously in our real lives, far away from any sinking boats.
Right.
We are constantly treating people who are trying to help as if they're active threats.
Simply because their method of helping doesn't match ours.
Precisely.
Which is exactly where I want to go next. Let's get out of the hypothetical boat and look at how this manifests in your day-to-day life.
Let's do it.
Dr. Tedda outlines several incredibly specific, everyday battlegrounds where this happens. Let's start with arguably the most emotionally charged one, the family.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The family dynamic is a prime example in the text, largely because the emotional stakes just amplify the conflict.
Everything is dialed up to 11.
Exactly. So Dr. Tedda describes the classic age-old tension between a parent and a child. The parent looks at the child and believes that love, that ultimate goodness, means protecting that child from every possible hardship, danger, or failure.
Right. Their entire biological imperative is screaming like, shield them, keep them safe. If they fall, I have failed.
The parent is fiercely guarding the good as safety. But the child, particularly as they grow into teenagers or young adults, looks at their own life and believes that love means being trusted.
Oh, man.
It means being allowed to make independent decisions, to stumble, to face consequences, and, to learn from them. The child is fiercely guarding the good of growth and freedom.
And both of these pursuits, safety and growth, are undeniably vital, good things.
But when a parent's need for safety crashes into a teenager's need for freedom, it is explosive.
It really is.
Because, as the text notes, without an awareness of the other person's version of goodness, misinterpretations run wild. The parent, who is acting entirely out of a protective instinct, appears wildly controlling, suffocating, and untrusting to the child.
And the child, who is just acting on a totally natural developmental need to grow, well, they appear reckless, rebellious, and deeply ungrateful to the parent.
It's so tragic, honestly, because they both just want the relationship to thrive, but they are speaking two completely different languages of love and goodness.
Yeah, that really hits home. And as I was going through Dr. Tedda's examples, it struck me that this dynamic shifts into a completely different gear when you change the environment.
How so?
Well, in a family, the stakes are deeply personal. But take this into the workplace, and suddenly those protective instincts wrap themselves around completely different things like structure or fairness or people's livelihoods. I mean, think about a classic office showdown over company policy.
That is a highly relevant transition, yeah. Because the professional sphere triggers its own unique set of angels.
For sure.
Let's look at a scenario with two coworkers facing a crisis. One worker firmly believes that goodness in the workplace means adhering to established procedures down to the letter.
Everyone listening knows this person, the ultimate rule follower, the HR stickler.
Right. But their underlying motivation is actually protecting the good of fairness, consistency, and accountability. They believe that if the rules bend for one person, the whole system collapses and people get taken advantage of.
Okay, that's valid. But then you introduce the second worker.
Now, introduce a second worker into the same crisis. Let's say it's a situation involving a client with a really sensitive personal emergency.
Okay.
This second person believes that goodness means showing flexibility. Maybe bending or breaking the rules slightly to demonstrate compassion and accommodate human suffering. They are protecting the good of humanity and empathy.
So we have a complete breakdown.
Complete breakdown.
Because the rule follower sees the flexible worker as sloppy, chaotic, or maybe even corrupt, because they are actively bypassing the established guardrails.
Right. And the flexible worker looks at the rule follower and sees a cold, heartless bureaucrat who cares more about a spreadsheet than a human being in pain.
What's fascinating here is the underlying pattern that Dr. Tedda exposes. In every single one of these scenarios, neither side is inherently malicious.
Not at all.
The rule follower isn't trying to be cruel, they're trying to be fair. The flexible worker isn't trying to be chaotic. They're trying to be kind. But the lack of mutual understanding turns those virtues into weapons.
Virtues into weapons. That's exactly it.
And if you're listening to this right now, I guarantee this next one is going to hit home because the text brings this exact framework into how we actually talk to each other. The clash of communication styles.
Oh, yes.
If you are someone who prides yourself on, telling it like it is, you are going to want to hear this.
Communication is perhaps the most frequent battleground of angels. Dr. Tedda highlights the clash between the person who values absolute truth and the person who values peace.
The truth teller versus the peacemaker.
Exactly. The individual who champions truth believes that goodness requires speaking directly and bluntly, stripping away pleasantries to get to the core of the issue, regardless of how uncomfortable it makes everyone in the room.
Because to them, withholding the truth is a form of betrayal. It's inefficient and it's dangerous.
But the person who champions peace operates from a completely different paradigm. They believe goodness means choosing words carefully, heavily factoring in the emotional state of the listener, and perhaps softening the blow to maintain harmony and relationship stability.
And the result is a total disaster.
Total disaster.
The direct truth teller looks at the peacemaker and says, you are weak, you are dishonest, you are dancing around the issue and wasting everyone's time.
Yeah.
And the peacemaker looks at the truth teller and says, you are unnecessarily aggressive, you are insensitive, you're just being a bully.
And yet both truth and peace are fundamental virtues. I mean, society collapses without either of them. But in the moment of conflict, they are treating each other as mortal enemies.
Which brings up a huge, glaring question for me.
Lay it on me.
If we are all just walking around carrying these different equally valid versions of good, why do these situations escalate into such painful, relationship-destroying conflicts?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Why can't the human brain just logically assess the situation, nod, and say, oh, I see you are protecting peace, I am protecting truth. What a lovely, diverse world we live in. Why does it get so incredibly ugly?
Well, it gets ugly because of a very specific psychological trap that human beings are wired to fall into. The text explicitly outlines this as the danger zone.
The danger zone.
The danger materializes the exact moment we assume that our specific method of doing good is the only righteous way to exist in the world.
The absolute arrogance of our own good intentions.
Precisely. When we elevate our method, whether that is blunt truth, strict rules, or protective parenting, to the status of absolute moral righteousness, a very dark psychological shift occurs.
What happens?
It's rooted in cognitive dissonance. Our brains struggle to hold two conflicting ideas of good at the same time. So, to protect our own ego and our worldview, we stop examining the other person's perspective. We stop looking at their method, and we leap straight to judging their heart.
Oh, wow. So we stop saying, your method of bailing water out of this boat is inefficient, and we start saying, you actively want this boat to sink because you are an evil person.
Yes. We decide that because they disagree with our perfect method, they must fundamentally possess bad intentions. We stop listening entirely. Because, as Dr. Tedda writes, we have already decided that we are undeniably right.
And that's when things turn toxic.
This is precisely how angels begin to fight. Good intentions, when stripped of empathy and understanding, produced incredibly toxic consequences.
Like what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. The parent trying to help ends up tyrannically controlling. The peacemaker trying to preserve harmony ends up enabling a massive lie. The truth teller pursuing justice loses all their compassion and just causes trauma.
Okay, hang on. Here's where it gets really interesting, and I just have to push back a little bit here.
Go for it.
I have to admit some skepticism, because this all sounds very nice, very harmonious and evolved, but let's be real for a second.
Let's be real.
If I just start assuming that everyone who crosses me secretly has good intentions deep down, aren't I just giving people a free pass to do terrible, harmful things?
That is a very common concern.
I mean, when my coworker actively throws me under the bus in a meeting to steal credit for a project, it doesn't feel like they're speaking a different language of goodness. It feels incredibly malicious. Does this philosophy mean we just excuse bad behavior because, hey, they were just trying to protect their own version of good?
That is the exact trap many analytical minds fall into when they first encounter this concept, and it is a vital distinction to make.
Okay, so what does the text say?
The source material is adamant on this point. Absolutely not. This philosophy is not a mandate to excuse harm or tolerate abuse.
Thank goodness.
Dr. Tedder explicitly states that people can have genuinely good core motivations, like, say, a desire for security or a need for recognition, and still make deeply harmful, destructive, and selfish choices in how they pursue them.
So how do we actually balance that? How do I differentiate between a battle of angels and someone just being a total jerk?
By recognizing that acknowledging someone's underlying motivation does not require you to abandon truth, boundaries, or accountability for their actions.
So you can own both.
Exactly. You can recognize that your coworker threw you under the bus out of a deep-seated fear for their own job security, their twisted version of protecting good, while still holding them entirely accountable for the professional sabotage.
Right.
The text provides a clear directive here. We address the issue, we fiercely correct the harmful behavior, and we set boundaries, but we do so without automatically dehumanizing the other person or treating them as an intrinsic monster.
Okay, I see the distinction now. It's the difference between saying, your actions are causing significant harm, they are unacceptable, and here is the consequence, versus saying, you are a fundamentally evil person who wakes up every day plotting my demise.
That is the crucial pivot. And making that pivot requires a very specific cognitive skill, which Dr. Tedder introduces as the ultimate antidote to the battle of angels.
Which is?
Wisdom. He posits that goodness without wisdom is essentially chaotic. It just crashes into things. Wisdom is the stabilizing force.
That makes a lot of sense.
It is what teaches us to pause in the blinding heat of the moment, bypass our ego, and ask one vital, transformative question. What good is this person trying to protect?
What good is this person trying to protect? Man, that's a massive speed bump for the brain right there.
It really is.
When you're furious with someone, when your heart rate is up and you feel entirely justified in your anger, the absolute last thing you want to do is go hunting for their underlying virtue.
It goes entirely against our immediate biological programming, which is exactly why it requires wisdom.
Yeah.
But when we force ourselves to ask that question, when we start to understand that two expressions of goodness are in conflict rather than good and evil, something incredible happens to our nervous system.
We calm down.
The threat response lowers. We become slightly more patient. We listen more carefully to the mechanics of their argument. We start asking clarifying questions before we draw our damning conclusions.
We stop treating them like a comic book villain.
Yes. We stop fighting merely to prove that our specific version of good, is more righteous than the angel standing before us.
Okay, so we've got this tool now. We have the concept of wisdom. We're pausing. We're asking what good they're trying to protect. But practically speaking, for you listening right now on your commute or at your desk, how do you actually resolve the conflicts in your own life using this?
Right, let's bring it down to earth.
Yeah, let's bring this out of the theoretical realm and down to the ground level.
The practical way forward, according to the text, requires completely abandoning the zero-sum game.
Meaning, there isn't a winner and a loser.
Exactly. It is not about one side winning and the other side being vanquished. Sometimes, the only lasting structural solution to a conflict is to figure out how to bring the two opposing goods into conversation with each other, forcing them to collaborate.
I really love that phrasing, bringing the goods into conversation. What does that synthesis actually look like in practice?
Well, Dr. Tedder provides several beautiful pairings to illustrate this mechanical synthesis. For instance, he says that truth must learn to speak with compassion.
Okay, let's actually pause there and unpack the mechanics of that one, because earlier we established that the truth teller thinks compassion is just sugarcoating.
Right.
How do those two actually merge in a practical conversation?
It requires the truth teller to shift the ultimate goal of the interaction. If you're the truth teller, your natural instinct is to simply deliver the raw facts.
Yeah.
Like your project failed because your work was sloppy,
Very blunt.
because you were protecting accountability. But if you synthesize that with compassion, you change the delivery mechanism without altering the factual reality. You might say, I want you to succeed in this role, and because I care about your trajectory, we need to honestly address the oversights in this project.
Oh, wow. That's a completely different vibe.
You are still delivering the hard truth, but you are wrapping it in a stated commitment to the other person's well-being. The truth lands because the compassion lowers the listener's defenses.
It makes the truth digestible instead of just destructive.
Exactly. And he applies this synthesis across the board. For example, freedom must walk with responsibility.
So the teenager who wants the freedom to take the car on a road trip has to proactively demonstrate the responsibility the parent needs to see to feel that the good of safety is still being honored.
Precisely. They must speak the parent's language of safety to earn their language of freedom.
That's brilliant.
Dr. Tedda continues with other pairings. Justice must remember mercy. Protection must deliberately leave room for growth. And returning to our earlier workplace example, order and rules must make space for humanity and context.
It's a synthesis. It's this profound realization that your specific version of good is actually incomplete without the other person's good balancing it out.
Unpacking that is the key.
Like, truth without compassion is just brutality. But compassion without truth is just enabling a comfortable lie. They actually need each other to function properly, even if in the moment they feel like total opposites.
That is the deepest realization offered by the source text. True, lasting peace becomes possible when we realize that the person across from us, the one causing us so much frustration, may not be fighting against goodness at all.
They may just be defending a different, equally necessary good.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? How do you use this today?
That's the real test, isn't it?
It is. I want you to think about a current disagreement you are having right now. Maybe it's a simmering tension with your partner, an ongoing turf war with a coworker, or, a political debate with a family member that always ends in shouting.
We all have at least one.
Think about that argument where you feel so entirely undeniably justified. Now, I want to challenge you, based on what we've unpacked today, to change the fundamental question you are asking yourself when you look at them.
Change the question.
Stop asking, why are they maliciously opposing me? And start asking, what essential thing are they seeing and trying to protect that I might be completely blind to right now?
It is a massive paradigm shift from defense to curiosity. And when we train ourselves to reason from the perspective of others, disagreement does not have to inevitably mutate into hatred.
Right. You can fiercely challenge someone's actions. You can hold strict boundaries without condemning their personhood.
Exactly. You can stand incredibly strong in your convictions without becoming blind to the very sincere, very real concerns of the person you are arguing with.
Because peace isn't about victory. It isn't about achieving a state where you forced everyone in your life to see the world exactly the way you do.
No, not at all. The battle of angels only ends when wisdom is finally invited into the room. And wisdom reminds us that goodness speaks many different dialects.
It really does.
True peace comes when we are humble enough to listen to that unfamiliar language, mature enough to understand its grammar, and loving enough to seek a good that does not destroy the good the other person is so desperately trying to protect.
That is an incredibly powerful way to frame it. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've just discussed.
Something for the commute home.
Exactly. Think back to that absolute 100% certainty we talked about at the very beginning of the show. That feeling in your bones that you are entirely right.
The moral high ground.
Right. If we can accept the possibility that our so-called enemies in these everyday conflicts might just be fighting for a different kind of good, what does that actually say about the conflicts we hold on to the tightest?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Are we holding on to a fight because we actually want to solve the problem and improve the situation, or are we simply dragging it out because our ego desperately wants our specific angel to win the battle and be declared the righteous victor?
It is a question that requires a remarkable amount of self-honesty to answer.
It really does. It requires us to look in the mirror before we look across the table. Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. Keep asking the hard questions, keep looking for the good the other person is trying to protect, and we will catch you on the next deep dive. Take care.